City Council meeting. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilor Bettine.
Here.
Councilor Brookie.
Here.
Councilor White.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Youssef. And Mayor Marbury.
Here. Tonight we have two proclamations, and I'm going to begin with the Spirit of 45, Rosie the Riveter Day. And I would like to invite Becky Woodridge. Becky, would you come up here, please? And you know, Becky, why don't you bring all these Rosies up here with you? Please bring them up here. Come on, girls. Come with me. Hi, honey bun. You stand up here. Stand up there. All right, now, girls, face the camera. All right. And so this is so exciting. Rosie the Riveter. Can anybody see? Whereas National Rosie, I get all choked up. I have to say, I was a Brownie and a Girl Scout, so I sure appreciate you coming here tonight. National Rosie the Riveter Day acknowledges the important role that over 6 million women played on the home front during World War II. It's very emotional. Leading to Senate Resolution 418 and House Resolution 756 that were introduced and passed unanimously on February the 28th, 2018. Therefore, officially designating March the 21st as Rosie the Riveter Day, whereas these women filled an enormous shortage of workers after American men enlisted in the war effort, recognizing mothers, daughters, secretaries, wives, and even schoolgirls who left their homes to work full-time in factories, farms, shipyards, airplane manufacturing, lumber. Isn't that amazing? Lumber and steel mills, banks, and other institutions. Whereas Americans have chosen to honor these women, collectively known as Rosies, who proved that they can do the jobs known as men's work and who created an entirely new image of women in American society, setting the stage for upcoming generations. And whereas it is right and proper to ensure the history and legacy of working women during World War II are not lost. I have the sniffles. And whereas these women and their descendants wish to promote cooperation and fellowship among each other, as well as all Americans, men and women who supported the war, to further their advancement of excellence in the workplace, patriotic ideals, and loyalty to the United States of America. And therefore I, Sweetie Marbury, Durango Mayor, proclaim March 21st as Rosie the Riveter Day. They are the future. They are today in Durango. Durango should be so proud of these children here because they are celebrating the women of World War II. My mother worked at a post office while my dad was in a tank in France. So we all know the history of America, and it couldn't have happened without all of those girls growing up to take the roles. So thank you all the Rosies, and thank you all for coming tonight. Becky, would you like to say something?
I would, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Come on over here. There, you just come to the podium. You come with me.
So thank you so much. Now I'm getting choked up.
Oh, no.
So on behalf of Spirit of 45 and the co-chairs for Spirit of 45 for Durango are Judy and Jim Wenzel, who could not be here tonight. They asked us as a troop, as Girl Scouts, to come here tonight to receive this. We were a troop that marched in the Veterans Day Parade and held up the posters for the World War veterans, and we were honored when she called and said, could we be here for her, because she could not be here. With me today, we invited the Girl Scouts in this area, and we have some Girl Scouts Our Girl Scout troop is 26243, and we have invited 20743 troop and troop number 20836. So we cover a big area here in Durango. And we are just delighted, and we actually have a special guest with us. We have an actual Rosebud with us. If you don't know the history, I would like to share it with you a little bit. So the Rosies are the women who actually went to, either went to war as a nurse, or they were the ones that worked in the factory, as the mayor mentioned. But the Rosebuds are the daughters of the Rosies. And we're here, we brought Nancy Moore with us today because her mother worked in the factories, and we're here to honor her as well, as we all will be doing on March 21st. And we have several Rosebuds in Durango, and we are looking for more, looking for some Rosies to honor. And our troop and other troops for Girl Scouts will be hosting a party on March 21st at the Elks Lodge to celebrate with a dance party for all the women who went to war for our country. So thank you so much. We're very honored to be here.
It's our honor to have you here.
Before you leave, can I get everyone to give me their best Rosie Predator stance?
Okay, you ready? Show me your muscles. Ready? Your elbows up.
Good job. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sure a story tonight cocktails.
Thank you very much. Our next proclamation. Rosie probably have homework to go do, so they're going to go home. Thank you, Rosies. Thank you, Rosies. Thank you, sweet peas. Is Jeff Davis here? Jeff, come on up. Jeff will be accepting the next proclamation. Thank you, Jeff. Jeff has been here before. This is Athletic Training Month, whereas athletic trainers have a long history of providing quality health care for athletes and those engaged in physical activity based on specific skills, knowledge, and skills acquired through their nationally regulated educational processes. And whereas athletic trainers are skilled practitioners in the prevention, recognition, evaluation, and treatment of athletic injuries, and whereas athletic trainers provide rehabilitative services, education, and healthcare guidance for those under their care, and whereas the National Athletic Trainers Association represents and supports over 45,000 members of the athletic training profession, including several hundred athletic trainers in Colorado and more than 20 in the city of Durango. And whereas athletic trainers are allied healthcare professionals who are responsible for the development and coordination of effective healthcare delivery systems in professional, collegiate, and high school athletics, as well as in clinics, hospitals, corporate, and industrial settings, and all branches of the United States military. And whereas leading organizations concerned with athletic training and healthcare have united in a common commitment to raise public awareness of the importance of the profession of athletic training and the roles of athletic trainers in the provision of quality healthcare services. Now, therefore, I, Sweetie Marbury, Mayor of Durango, Colorado, until April the 16th, proclaim March 2019 as Athletic Training Month. Congratulations. Would you like to say a few words?
Briefly,
All
that's
right.
a tough act to follow this evening after the voters. This is the 7th year in a row that we've done this, and while I understand this is largely ceremonial, we certainly appreciate your support. This body's been fantastic in recognizing athletic trainers. I think at one point, some of you had an opportunity to read this. Mr. LeBlanc presented one of these at a basketball game one year, so we genuinely appreciate that support. And this is the 7th year we've done this. I guess if you all stay here long enough, you all have a chance to read one of these. When we first started this, there were only a few of us in the community, a handful of athletic trainers. And in the last 7 years, we've grown quite a bit. So we're out there taking care of kids at every one of the high schools in the area. We've kind of extended that reach to take care of kids at the middle school. We've extended an invite to the mayor to meet with us on the 11th, which he's graciously accepted. We have a brand new sports medicine facility, and it'd be a nice opportunity to see where we kind of work out of, and then to meet some of the people that are taking care of kids in the community. And so thank you very much, and if anyone else would like to attend, we'd be happy to have you. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next March.
Thank you so kindly. The next is a canine presentation, and Chief, will you come up here, please? It was my honor last week to go to the Police Public Service Awards recognition. And so at that recognition, Betty, the canine, I've met the officer, and I've asked Betty and her handler to please come tonight to City Council. Chief, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. This is Officer Justin Moore and his partner, Betty. And this is a canine for the Durango Police Department. And we would like to give a little presentation to the citizens of Durango and to the council this evening, just to let everybody know exactly what their role is within the organization, within the city, and how we can help to potentially help us get another one down the road. So I'm going to turn this over to Officer Justin Moore, who's our residential expert with the dog.
All right. Good evening. Thanks for having us here. So the canine program has been made possible by donations from the community. It's how we got started, it's how we maintain it. All our costs for training, for equipment, her really picky diet. She eats chicken every night, so it's costly. We get dry dog food donations from Pet House and vet cares provided by Durango Animal Hospital. So the initial cost for Betty was $14,000. Just Betty alone was $8,000. Then we spent another $4,000 for my training, and then like another $1,500 or so just for equipment for leads and collars and leashes and harnesses and all that stuff. Donations can be made online at durangogov.org, and then you go to payments, and there's a little tab down there that you can go online and I think it's PayPal or something. So the benefits, basically we are a support role to patrol. So if there's officers stop a car that they think drugs in, we can run a canine on the outside, do a free air sniff on any traffic stop as long as we're not prolonging that traffic stop, just for the dog. So far we've seized about 315 grams of illegal narcotics, so about somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000 in less than a year. On patrol, we can safely take violent offenders into custody. A lot of people, they just surrender at the mere presence of having a canine. One that sticks out to me is we went to a knife call. People, they turned out they were just handing knives back and forth, but it came in as someone getting stabbed, and because of the nature of the call, I got the dog out. And immediately everyone just got on their knees and surrendered just by her presence there, and it's kind of embarrassing because she wasn't paying attention. It's like, at least look like you're doing something. So far we're up to 22 felony arrests. I know it says 21. I made this on Friday, and we worked Saturday and Sunday, so it's changed a little bit. We're up to 97 deployments now. So a big city like Fort Collins, they claim there are 4 dogs, 5 dogs that they have, do 600 deployments a year, which averages between 100 and 150 dog deployments a piece. So just in Little Durango, we're doing just as much, if not more. We'd like to get a second dog. Just from the benefits of having Betty in less than a year, we've already made a huge impact on our crime and our drugs. Our offenders, they kind of figure out when we work, what our schedule is, and they go do it on my days off. So the goal is to get another dog, get both sides of the week, have canine available to officers, whether it be for locating narcotics, whether it be for officer safety, sending in on building searches or something that would put an officer in danger. That's, if we have K-9 available, it's undue. For something like a building search, 2 officers, they can search the building and they have about 53% accuracy of finding a suspect. A dog can do it in half the time with about 97% accuracy. So, the county, the Jedco building, they had Berg in there a couple years ago. It took 4 guys 14 minutes to safely and tactically clear that building. They didn't locate anybody. K-9 arrived, 3.5 minutes later, suspect safely in custody. So they bring a lot of benefit.
Do you have any questions for Officer Moore?
Well, no questions, but comments that the safety of our police officers is really important to all of us. And with the K-9, they are safer, and therefore our community is safer. And so I'm going to encourage everyone to look in their wallets and go online to the City of Durango. It's under the donations, under the police department. There's a button for K-9. Or just come down and drop off a $10 check. Anything would be happily received. And let's keep in mind that this is something that has made a huge difference in the lives and safety of our officers in our community. So thank you so kindly for coming tonight. I have a German Shepherd, and I can testify that my dog is always working. And so I know your dog is always working as well for the benefit of our community. Counselors?
Thanks. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Thanks, Ben. And you have a public safety.
I'll go up right after.
You are. You're on.
Thank you. Well, once again, Madam Mayor, Council, my name is Commander Bob Grammer. I'm the Interim Chief of Police with the Durango Police Department. On February 23rd, I was honored to host the 2018 Public Safety Awards, which we hosted at the Rec Center. So thank you, Captain Metz, and your staff for helping us out set that up that evening. That event is our way for the Chief of Police to honor the employees of the Durango Police Department and their families, and to be able to say thank you for all the contributions that they've done throughout the entire year. This is an opportunity for us to gather on one place, to celebrate our annual achievements, and to recognize the individual acts of heroism, bravery, and courage that are displayed by our officers almost on a nightly basis. To pay humble tribute to the selfless dedication of all of our members and volunteers of our police department as we continue the commitment to service to the citizens of Durango and to the visitors of our city. And I'd just like to take up a couple minutes to just kind of recap the awards and who's presented with different achievements throughout through the 2018 year. Officer Chris Thompson, Corporal Thompson, I should say, that's his appropriate rank. He's the recipient of our Officer of the Year Award. That's voted on by all the members of the agency, and they nominate through different achievements and through different recognitions throughout the year. So this is a peer award for outstanding achievement for an individual officer. Our civilian of the year was Kim Walsh, one of our property technicians, and again, it's the same type of recognition. It's a peer award that votes them as high recognition within the agency. Mike Andrews is a volunteer. He was one of our Citizens Police Academy graduates. I don't know exactly what session he was in, but he continues to volunteer on a daily basis with us at the agency. And without our volunteers, we'd be struggling because they help out and provide a tremendous service to not only the department, but to the city. And to throw a pitch in for Citizen Police Academy, it starts tomorrow night as the first session, or first night of our next session. So we're really excited about that with 22 applicants that are being participation in that. Dawn Marie Lawson was voted as the Community Service Award Officer of the Year. Her contributing efforts towards the different programs throughout the city, with the culmination of the Shop the Cop program that we host every year with local regional law enforcement from all over the Four Corners area to help make a brighter Christmas for kids, was a culminating event for her to achieve this award. Officer Brian Griffith was awarded the Traffic Officer of the Year Award for DUI enforcement, and that was hosted through CDOT, and he won that award for the year, and we recognize him individually in-house as well. Officer J.J. Roundson had 2 life-saving medals this year, where one was he saved one guy that was suffering from arterial bleed from a gunshot, where he was able to place a tourniquet on that guy and save that guy's life. And then he was also able to respond to a suicidal call where the gentleman was hanging from an extension cord around his neck and was able to get him down and resuscitate him and bring him back. So great achievements by him. Corporal Chris Thompson, a very similar incident where he responded to a suicidal male. That male was on a ladder with a ligature around his neck. He was able to negotiate with him for about 45 minutes, talk him off that, and get him the help that he needed, so he saved his life as well. Corporal Bruce Hammer, who's our school resource officer, found a teenager that responded to a teenager that was suffering from a drug overdose. He promptly applied Narcan and was able to reverse those effects and bring that person back to life. And this is mislabeled. Corporal Travis Kettleslager responded to an unresponsive female, and he was able to provide CPR and bring her back to life as well. And then we embraced the core value awards at the city, at the Durango Police Department as well. These core value awards were adopted by the city across the entire city, and we wholeheartedly embrace these as well within our organization. And each one of our members voted on the different 7 core values for each one of our officers and provided an individual award to each one of those. So Sergeant Tim Dixon was awarded the Respect Award. Corporal Kevin Hoy, the Well-Being Award. And the Shared Award for Innovation went to Kim Wall and Kaylee Word and our property technicians. Officer Tony Miraz was awarded the Professionalism Award. Corporal Butch Hammer received the Service Award. Officer David Smith received the Teamwork Award. And then we get into the distinctions of years of service. Officer Leonard Martinez has been serving. He's a school resource officer for 25 years of dedicated service to the city and to the department, and he received that award. Officer Cindy Taylor, previously Detective Clay, she received a 15-year service award for her dedicated time to the city. And Terry Brookins received a And that's kind of a recap of the awards we had this year. It was a great event. We had a great time. The mayor was in attendance, and so was the city manager's office as representation. And we really appreciate the support that we had from them, and we really appreciate all that the city council does for the police department.
It was very inspirational. That's why I asked Commander Bramer to come tonight, because we have so many reasons to be grateful to the men and women in blue. You saw Betty and the K-9 officer. You heard how Betty's been deployed. They put their lives on the line every day for us. So thank you so much, Chief, for coming tonight and sharing all of those wonderful recognitions in our police department.
Absolutely.
It makes me very proud to live in Durango.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I will second that and also put in a plug for the Citizens Police Academy. I've attended the opening ceremony at least once and the closing ceremony several times. And this is a great program, and the graduates seem to have uniform appreciation for all that they've learned and for the work that you all do.
You're more than welcome to attend tomorrow night, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are moving in a monitoring of an avian productivity and survivorship, the MAPS presentation that Ms. Metz will address. Ms. Metz?
Good evening, Mayor Marbury and members of City Council. It's with my pleasure that I can introduce to you Steve Whiteman, who's the chair of the Natural Lands Preservation Advisory Board, and Lynn Wickersham, who is an avian biologist with Animas Biological Services, and they would like to present the Monitoring Avian Productivity and Survivorship, or MAPS, program results for the last 5 years.
As a member of the Natural, please come to the podium. As a member of the Natural Lands Board, it's been so interesting learning about the avian down at the Oxbow, and the preserve is so unique, and so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. As Kathy mentioned, my name is Lynn Wickersham, and I have to correct the name of my business. It's Animas Biological Studies. And I'm here to talk about the MAPS project that we've been doing so far for 5 years at Oxbow Preserve. And the MAPS program is actually a North American monitoring program for land birds. So we're just one of over 1,000 bird banding stations. And the purpose of the program is to identify and analyze population trends of land birds, which we can take and develop management and conservation strategies for specific species or suites of species that may be of concern. The program provides educational and volunteer opportunities for the community, and also we're contributing to this larger database monitoring North American birds. So we've been doing this project since 2014, and the total cost is just under $65,000 for those 5 years, and about half of which has been contributed by Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and the other half by the city of Durango, my understanding from sales tax funds that were approved in 2005. But I should also mention that I have a team of volunteers that participate every year, and they're putting in their time unpaid. There's travel costs and a lot of other costs that really aren't figured into this total, so it could be quite a bit more than that. This map just shows the location of other MAPS stations in Colorado. So those pink dots that you see there are bird banding stations that are not in operation at this time, but that have been in the past. So the MAPS program has been ongoing since the late 80s. And the green bubbles show the current active MAPS stations, and there are only 2 at this time in Colorado, so our station actually represents a unique offering that is great to have for this part of our state as well as the whole state in general. And this is an aerial view of the Oxbow Park and Preserve and the locations of our trapping stations or nets. So the area is, it's about 20 acres or so, and there's no scale on this map, but the net locations are anywhere from 75 to 200 or 300 meters apart. So it's a fairly small area, and we run 10 netting locations. The MAPS program occurs during the summer months, so this is a breeding bird study, and the season is broken into 10-day windows. So we open the nets one day within these 10-day windows, and we start about sunrise and we keep them open for 6 hours. We check the nets and we remove all of the birds that we capture, and we bring them back to a centrally located processing station where we band them and do a bunch of measurements. Sometimes we're not able to keep our nets open for the entire length of time if we have adverse weather conditions like wind and rain. And this year, in the case of the 416 fire, we had smoke pollution that kept us from being out there. When we capture each bird, we record a lot of basic information about whether it's a new capture, a recapture. Some birds we actually release unbanded because they either escape before we can get our bird bands on them, or in the case of hummingbirds, they're not really a part of what's monitored in this project, so we just let them go. And then we take a lot of measurements to determine the age and the sex of the birds, which are critical components to tracking bird populations. And each of the birds are banded with a uniquely numbered aluminum leg band that we get from the Fish and Wildlife Service. So this year, we did a MAPS operation on 7 days, and that's a little bit less than normal because there were a couple of days that, or several weeks really, where the smoke was so bad in the valley that it just wasn't safe to be out there doing the work. Some of the days we started a little bit later when we could, but we did have less effort than most years. And we captured 166 birds of 31 species. We banded 85 birds. 27 were recaptured, and 54 were released unbanded, and the vast majority of those are hummingbirds. We, this year, observed a total of 65 species within the Oxbow Preserve or flying over the preserve, and we didn't have any new species that we observed, but we did band 1 new species this year, the mourning dove, not really an uncommon species, but just one that we had captured before. And if you are familiar with any of these bird species, the most frequent species that we captured were the house wren, the yellow warbler, black-chin hummingbird, rufous hummingbird, which is not on that list, black-capped chickadee, that's the bird that you see in that photo there, and American goldfinch. So this next slide has a lot of data on it. We won't go through this in a lot of detail. Could probably talk about this for an hour or so, but I won't. But just to kind of show you the effort and the data comparison across the years, if you look at the first line of information, that's our number of net hours. So we have 10 nets out on the station. When they're open for 6 hours a day, that's 60 net hours. And sometimes we're not able to keep all of the nets open because of weather, and sometimes we capture so many birds that we have to actually close some nets so that we can keep up with the volume and keep the birds safe. But you can see the net hours varied across the years, and in 2018 we had the lowest number of net hours of all the years because of that issues with the smoke from the fire. But if you look at 2015 also, the numbers were quite a bit lower, and that was a year that there was a heavy runoff and the Oxbow flooded. And it just wasn't safe to run the nets when they were standing over water. And then if you look down a couple of lines below to number of captures, you can see that it was fairly consistent across most of the years, but in 2018 there was quite a big dip, 166 birds compared to well over 200 and almost 300 in that 2015 year where we had fewer hours, and I attribute most of that to a lot of water at the site and probably a lot of insects for the birds to eat and high productivity that year. And the last thing I wanted to highlight on this table is third from the bottom, that line that says capture success. And this is really a better indication of how we're doing out there than just captures alone. So it takes into account the captures per net hour. And you can see in 2018 it was quite a bit lower than in other years, 0.45, and the highest in that 2015 year. So there are a lot of questions actually raised this year in relation to the fire and what was happening out there and what the birds were doing, and probably some of the birds left and abandoned the nests. So a project like this is meant to be long-term. It's really difficult to say anything about bird populations with just 1 or 2 years of data, and you can see that reflected because of a lot of different environmental and other conditions that can affect things over the years. The other thing that I found interesting though, second to last line, is that we seem to be capturing fewer species every year, and I'm not really sure if that's just a result of us being in there and just bringing some disturbance in, or there's some other factors involved. So even though we did have quite a big difference, especially in 2018 with lower numbers, the statistical analyses do not indicate any significant differences across all years of the study in the amount of effort that we put in, the number of birds we captured, and our capture success. And we'll continue, if the project is continued to be funded, to monitor that across the years. We're also starting to analyze annual survival of all the birds in general and breaking it down species by species. And even though we've caught over 1,300 birds, looking at one individual species, we don't quite have enough data to say a whole lot about how the individual species are doing. But we'd like to continue the project and build a bigger data set so that we can say something about our local bird populations as a representative perhaps of the region and other riparian areas in the Southwest. I really want to continue to protect the Oxbow Preserve and promote it as high quality, important bird habitat. And by continuing to collect this data, we might be able to monitor any impacts of development of the park over the years compared to pre-development. And this project really does foster a lot of opportunities for volunteers and for students getting experience. So we've had Fort Lewis students coming to the site and learning about bird banding and then coming back and volunteering. We've had some middle school age kids coming to see the site, and then just members of the public that tend to stop by and see what we're doing. So that's a very brief and general description of the project, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and Steve will as well, if there's anything you want to say. say?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Marbury, City Council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak to this great project that's going on out at the Oxbow Park and Preserve. My name is Steve Whiteman. I'm the current chairman for the Natural Lands Board. Here to express my strong support for this project at the Preserve, as well as the support of the board. As Lynn mentioned, this project has been going on for 5 years now, and very hopeful that we can continue this work into the future. When we talk about the acquisition and management of various open space lands by the city, a lot of the attention goes to recreation, which is great. We all love it and it's very important. But one of the values that we don't spend a lot of time on is wildlife habitat. And I think that this is one really important open space under the city's management where we have really special wildlife values. This habitat is very biologically rich, being right alongside the Animas River. And I think that this project really allows us to spotlight those values, to better protect those values. There's certain commitments to conservation of that habitat that came along with the purchase of the property. So we can monitor how that value changes over time. Hopefully it gets better, or at least stays as good as it is right now. Not only does it have important biological, ecological values, but Lynn also spoke of the educational importance of it. I think it's just an outstanding opportunity where we can promote our future scientists and conservationists in the community by providing this opportunity to volunteer on this project. So again, I'm very supportive of this project continuing. I understand Colorado Parks and Wildlife is committed to additional funding for more work, and it is within the city budget, I believe. So very excited to hear that. And that's all I have to say. Happy to answer your questions.
Councilors?
Yes, I'm a bird watcher, but I have not yet been up to this site. I think once there's a parking lot, it might be a little easier to get there. But as a scientist, I really like the presentation you made and the study you presented. And it's very, very clear to me that the real value is long-term. That we can monitor, since we're going to have construction pretty much starting yesterday. And then we'll have a developed site adjacent to that. I think it's really important to keep up that study. And then as someone who's interested in climate change, that's also another long-term value to, we've got a site within the city that we can monitor to begin to understand the potential long-term impacts on our wildlife populations. And I just thank you for what you're doing, and thanks to Parks and Rec for funding. It's also, if I got those numbers right, the city's contribution is about $6,000 per year. That's a steal.
I would like to ask Ms. Metz, Councilor White and I were on City Council when the Oxbow was bought. And would you refresh the memory of the community of how we paid for it? Which fund paid for that?
So we did purchase Oxbow Park and Preserve in 2012. It was funded by the city dedicated sales tax funds that we authorized by voters in 2005 for the preservation of natural lands. We also received a substantial Great Outdoors Colorado grant that assisted the city in that acquisition.
So the dedicated sales tax is working not only for purchasing land, scientific endeavors, but we know that the Oxbow Trail, the construction is going forward with this as well. So multiple benefits from our dedicated sales tax of 205. Thank you both for coming tonight. We really appreciate your presentation. And I'd like to say thank you to all the voters in 2005. I was one. Raise your hand if you voted. Hello, we did. That we voted for the 2005 sales tax. We see it just multiplying over and over the benefits for our community. Thank you both. And I'm in Ms. Metz. We're going into the consent agenda. The consent agenda is intended to allow the City Council by a single motion to approve matters that are considered routine or non-controversial. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests an item be removed from the consent agenda and and considered separately. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered under item number 6. Would you review it then, please?
Items 4.1 through 4.3 are approval of minutes. 4.1, the special meeting of January 22nd, 2019. 4.2, the study session of February 12th, 2019. 4.3, the regular meeting of February 19th, 2019. 4.4 through 4.5 are discussion and possible action items. 4.4 concerns the submission of an Energy Impact Assistance Fund grant application for the 32nd Street Extended Detention Basin Outlet Project. 4.5 concerns an implied consent agreement for sewer service to 2290 County Road 203, Berghoff. 4.6 through 4.9 are requests for public hearings with a proposed date of March 19, 2019. 4.6 is to consider a preliminary minor subdivision for Twin Buttes Phase 1, Filing 1A, Lot 15. 4.7 is to consider a preliminary minor subdivision for Twin Buttes Phase 1, Filing 1A, Lot 16. 4.8 is to consider a proposal from the Volunteers of America for a preliminary plan plat for Lot 1 of Three Springs Village 1, Filing 2A, in order to facilitate development of a 53-unit senior affordable housing building. 4.9 is to consider land use and development code text amendments. 4.10 is to consider renaming Santa Rita Drive to Larry Valdez Way. And item 4.11 is final approval of Ordinance O 2019-7, amending the provisions of Article 4 of Chapter 17 and Article 3 of Chapter 18 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Durango related to the regulation of and the use of city-owned and managed property for the purposes of camping and sheltering and declaring an effective date.
Would any city councilor like to remove an item?
No.
Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilor White?
Yes.
Councilor Bettine?
Yes.
Councilor Bricky?
Yes.
And Mayor Marbury?
Yes. I only have one comment about the March 19th City Council meeting. I'm inviting all veterans from our community to come to the celebration of the renaming of Santa Rita Drive to Larry Valdez Way. Larry Valdez was a Silver Star recipient, Durango High School graduate, Vietnam vet, and we will be honoring Mr. Valdez that night. When you honor one veteran, you honor all veterans. With that, we're moving into public participation. City Manager, did anyone sign up?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we're going to keep going then. And we're moving into introduction of ordinances. 10.1 is an ordinance amending Chapter 27 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Durango Land Use and Development Code by repealing and reacting Article 3-6, signs, and by the amendment of and additions to portions of the code related to signs.
Okay. Madam Mayor, this is the ordinance, the ordinance the hearing was held on the last meeting to adopt the sign code. This is ordinance number O 2019-9.
I'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 2019-9.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Bricky?
Yes.
Councilor Bettine?
Yes.
Councilor White?
Yes.
Mayor Marbury?
Yes.
I would correct that. That was actually 8. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I obviously can't read, so that was 8.
We need to redo that, Councilor Bettine.
But I think we can just clerically correct it. It
I'll
should have been
correct
8.
my motion to 2019-8.
Okie dokie.
Right.
All right. If
The
we're all legal, we're going to go to 10.2.
Mayor vote?
I voted yes.
Okay.
All right.
I wasn't sure.
Okay, I can't remember either, but I'll vote yes.
I apologize for that confusion.
That's okay. 10.2, an ordinance vacating and abandoning a portion of the public right-of-way on 28th Street and declaring an effective date.
Yes, now, this is ordinance O 29-9, I'll get it right. This item came up to council some time ago. This has been waiting for the underlying subdivision to be complete, and at this point, we can move forward with this routine abandonment of a right-of-way on 28th Street.
Thank you, sir. I'll look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2019-9.
I'll second.
And roll call, please.
Counselor White?
Yes.
Counselor Bettine?
Yes.
Counselor Brookie?
Yes.
Mayor Marbury?
Yes. We're going to go to council reports and actions. Councilor Bettine.
Yes, I had the privilege of getting to participate in a candidate forum today that was held by the Democrats. So I wanted to thank that organization for holding a nice forum, and the folks that are running for council. I just wanted to thank them for running. They had some amazing contributions. Obviously, spent a lot of time preparing for that event, and it was really edifying to watch them speak on all the issues that we're contending with. So appreciated that. And then also during that session got to speak in favor of ballot 1A issue for our tax issue. And I just wanted, if the mayor will permit me, I just wanted to mention a couple of things I didn't get to mention in that.
Absolutely.
Because I only had a few minutes.
Go for it.
And had about 4 hours worth of notes. So if you guys have a little bit of time,
I have
I'd
4
like
hours.
to.
Go.
And there's a couple of things that you've probably seen in the paper, maybe some in the comments section, and there's a couple topics that have come up, and I just wanted to, from the city council dais, set a couple records straight. And one of them is that oftentimes you'll see or hear your fellow citizens compare Durango's city count or city budget to other cities of our size and comparable size. And one of the studies that we've done is we've taken all those cities, and our city manager did an awesome presentation not long ago, really showing the differentiation between different cities and how many departments the city of Durango runs. And I actually have a chart in front of me. I wish I could put it in front of you, but I'm happily share it with anybody who's interested. That just shows Durango and its competitive set, and Durango having so many more services and amenities than many of the communities that we're often compared to. And one great example would be our airport. Many communities don't actually have an airport. So when you are comparing apples to apples, you really need to get an apple to compare the apple with. It has to be across the board. And so if you're going to compare our city to, let's say, Montrose, it's important to note the differences and subtract those items out of the budget when you're saying that our budget is potentially over. That's just one thing, and I think it's worth, when you see those comments that we're spending too much, I think it's worth you looking into that a little bit further and understand what the apple-to-apple comparison is. And the other thing that really drives that in the city of Durango that's interesting is that, as we all know, because we live here, the county is vast and has a large population, and many of those folks drive into the city daily to work, recreate, shop, do all the things that they do, or go skiing on the way through. And our city actually blossoms to about 35,000 people on an average day. And I think that's a comparable that most of the other comparables could not be made. And as we're talking about funding things like streets and infrastructure, obviously that additional traffic compared to many of the other cities we're often compared to is a big differential. And one other one that I want to come to the defense, and I've only got a couple more, I promise.
I'm listening.
Of some of the things that I've seen or heard, and are, why do we have two city assistant managers and their salaries? And I think it's interesting to note that we've got an exceptional city staff. They're, I think, some of the best in the business of running a city. They're awarded more than just about any city. When we go to our annual CML meeting, we're often held up as the example for other cities in the state of Colorado. And really proud of that. I think every citizen of the city should be proud of that. And one of the things that I think our city manager, Ron LeBlanc, has done so exceptionally well is prepared for, ultimately, a transition to the next generation of city management. And I hope he's around forever as our city manager, but I think one of these days he might go off to Scotland and leave us here alone. And he's done a good job of putting folks in a place where they can transition potentially into those positions. And so that's one of the reasons you see that. And the other thing that gets left out of that argument a lot of times is that our city managers are actually just department heads of major departments throughout the city. So, for example, one of them runs the 9/11 communications, administrative services, airport, human resources, and transportation, and the other is in charge of our community development department, major departments throughout the community. So when you see those salaries, please recognize that those folks would actually be employees of the city to run these very important componentry of the city as they are. And then the last one, Mayor, if I might, is that you often see this comparison that says, well, the city's revenues have actually increased over the years. And that's true. The city's revenues have increased. If you look back to 2013 through potentially 2018, I don't have all the numbers in yet, but if you look back, you'll see an increase that averages a total of about 2.16% per year of an increase in all general fund revenues throughout that time. And so people say, well, your revenues have gone up. How come you keep saying you're running out of money? And it's really a failure to look at both sides of the equation, because as we know, there's revenue and there's expenses. And so even though the revenues are going up by some amount, it's not very much, we all probably know that inflation goes up by about 3% a year. So we're averaging about 2.16% a year in revenue growth, but expenses are going up more than that, and actually they're going up more than 3% for things like the cost of concrete, the cost of asphalt, the cost of labor because of changes in labor markets like minimum wage changes over the last few years. Because those things have gone up so much, our expense line is actually forecast to cross with our revenue line in 2020, which is the reason we've been coming to you asking, hey, how can we solve that problem? And so that has been a planning exercise that the community has actually gone through over the last many years. First, they bid off dealing with enterprise funds such as the airport and utilities funds and things like that. And I would say that the previous city councils that you two, or you all three of you were a part of, did such an excellent job of putting those funds into great economic positions. They can afford to pay for themselves. They can afford to pay for their capital improvement projects. They're in great shape. The last fund that we need to bolster is our general fund, which pays for things like infrastructure, among other things. Infrastructure meaning the roads and sidewalks and all of the things that are sort of the fundamental things that we think of that the city does. And so I just wanted to sort of clarify a couple of those issues. I might do that again in the next council meeting, if you'll give me the permission to do that as we go along, as we get down to April for the 1A ballot issue. That's all I had.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, especially clarifying information that people sometimes don't hear or understand. Enterprise funds are businesses, they pay their own way. The general revenue fund supports employees, the streets, and the police department. And there is no dedicated funding for that except the general revenue, which is the sales tax. So you hear me preach all the time about shopping locally. And 1A, the ballots drop on March the 16th. Thank you very much, Councilor. Yes, sir.
I'd like to repeat everything Chris just said, because we can't say it enough, in terms of some of the myths that are out in our community. And it's all about education. And the more people know about how effective our government is and those people that show up here to work every day, it's pretty amazing. In fact, tomorrow I'll be going up to Denver to attend the conference for Colorado Association of Ski Towns. Durango even is respected as a ski town amongst the mayors and city managers of all those communities that are largely based on the recreational economy. And they all appreciate what leadership Durango does in terms of all the issues that affect all recreation-based communities, whether that's housing, whether that's transportation, and they look at us as a small town that has a big vision in all those areas. So I'll be going up to our annual legislative conference. The keynote speaker will be the new governor, Jared Polis, Thursday afternoon, followed by a dinner with a number of our state legislators. I have tonight, a few weeks ago, I was able to introduce my son from Washington, D.C., was the press secretary for Department of Veterans Affairs for 5 years. Tonight, I'm visited by my other son, Graham, if you can stand up. Graham's somewhere between Munich, the International Security Summit in Munich, on his way to speak at South by Southwest in Austin next week. So Durango's right on that path of travel, and he's currently he spent 5 years in the White House, in the West Wing of the White House, working for Susan Rice and the National Security Council, and a Durango High School graduate and lefty first baseman, and pretty proud of him. After I was able to testify in front of Congress with regard to the Gold King spill, called my kid in the White House, and he invited me down for a cup of coffee and sat in the Situation Room, and it was about the first time I ever had coffee in the Situation Room. So it's pretty much having the honor to have a kid like that. So thank you, Graham, for being here tonight, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Councilman Wright?
I've got a couple of remarks, just routine things. I won't repeat what my colleagues have said about the getting straight information. I'll change my mind. As Councilor Bettine was speaking about apples and oranges, I was reminded of the comparison that was made prior to the 2A vote between Durango and Montrose. And it said, well, gee, Montrose has no property tax. Yes, they've got 3 special districts that have total mill levies that are larger than almost double of what we pay just for La Plata County, although the city is over and above that. But it's roughly half again what we pay in property taxes. But they have they pay all of their fire district through property taxes. We pay most of it through sales taxes. They have a park and recreation district, and blanking on the third one. But there are really significant differences between communities, and I just can only second what Councilor Bettine said. You really have to look carefully at all of the services we provide that the other communities, most of the other communities do not. Other very routine things, I believe I now have, I'm not going to be having my office hour this week on Thursday. I'm having another cataract removed tomorrow. And I will have, I believe, 3 more here-to-here sessions on Thursdays across the hall in the city manager's conference room on the last 3 Thursdays of March after the election. I'm not going to do that anymore. Green Business Roundtable next week on Wednesday at the Strader Hotel at noon. It's going to be about electric vehicles, and following that, Forcor is hosting from 1:30 to 4:30 at the fairgrounds a clean transportation summit, and I believe it features the opportunity to ride in a big electric bus. So those are community events coming up that are worth mentioning. The biggest item is that Monday night at the library, or actually, excuse me, Monday night here, 5:30 p.m., is the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum, which I urge. I'm not sure if that will be televised. I believe it will be. I know, I can speak from my experience. The one time I got nervous campaigning was when we were about to have the on-air light come on. And I said, oh! And I realized I was going to say the same things, whether there was a camera on me or not. So I commend all the candidates for running, and I urge everyone to pay close attention and make their best decisions on voting.
Thank you very much. City Manager, I think we talked about a snow update, snow removal update.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Thank you very much. What the mayor asked me to present are some facts and figures regarding the winter we've had and how that's impacted our street division and snow removal operations. So between the dates of February 17 and February 27, the following occurred. We plowed 6,333 miles. The total number of hours behind a plow were 655. The total cost for labor, equipment, and materials were $137,655. And I'd like to introduce a couple concepts as I go through these statistics. One would be fixed costs versus variable costs. And we have heard from the podium, from the citizenry, and also letters together and whatnot, a good deal of misunderstanding. We budget for a full complement of staff in the street division, and the activities that they perform are dependent on the weather. So in other words, if we have 240 inches of snow, they're plowing snow. If we have 40-degree weather, they're patching streets. fixing concrete, performing drainage operations. So we have those costs in the budget. Most of our costs relate to personnel. And the variable cost that is applied for snow removal, for example, is how many truckloads of snow are we going to transfer to the snow dump? So I have those statistics also. We've moved from the central business district 1,165 loads of snow. For those who are more adept in math, that calculates to 18,640 cubic yards of snow. So if you want to picture a pile 3 feet wide and 3 feet deep, it would be 18,640 feet high. I'll let you do the math. For downtown, it was 192 hours to do this. And our city labor, equipment, and materials for downtown was $16,168. We had rental trucks, a bulldozer, and motor grader. We have to have a bulldozer at the snow dump, so when the truck dumps the snow, the bulldozer pushes it up on the pile so we can have more room for the next load. We've currently overrun that line item by $25,000. And the total cost for the downtown snow removal was $48,723. We're proud of our downtown, and I think there are a lot of cities in Colorado who are very envious of our downtown. We've done a lot of planning for the downtown, and we've invested a lot of infrastructure in the downtown, and we have to maintain it. We've heard council members and myself and staff mention that we're maintaining what we have. The downtown makes us the community that we are, and that sort of investment and prioritization is really what we ought to be doing. So year to date, for snow plowing, we've used 3,739 hours of labor to remove snow. So again, if the weather was different, those hours would have been used on different tasks. The equipment hours is 3,565 hours. We operate a variety of equipment. When we have snowfalls in excess of 8 inches, we typically will run 2 crews around the clock. Typically, each crew has 7 plow trucks, and we have a supervisor as well on duty. We had so much snow this year that the street superintendent was behind a plow, and we all know Mr. Levi Lloyd, he got behind a plow. And someday I can tell you a story about Levi and a motor grader going by my house, but we'll leave that for another day. Snow removal, year to date, let's see, is 1,064 hours, and in the central business district, 18,640 cubic yards. I think I'm repeating myself. Residential areas, we've removed 2,400 cubic yards. There are some residential streets where we have to haul the snow away. There's no place to put it without impacting private property. Cul-de-sacs are a major problem for that. And the total snow plowing and snow removal cost year to date is $537,337. And don't let that number scare you. Again, it's because we remove snow and plow snow because that's the weather we're facing. Most of that is labor and equipment rentals. We would have used that same amount of money with the exception of hauling, the amount we haul and the amount that we have for the bulldozer. That's in the budget. So we're not punishing anybody. We're glad we have a good snow year. When we're in the end of August, we ought to be thankful we had a good snow year. Last year, we didn't have any water restrictions to speak of. We worked with the top 10 irrigators in one of the worst droughts in history, recorded history, and we were able to manage our way through that. I think that's testimony to our staff. This year, we should have a little better water supply, but that doesn't mean we can be wasteful. And hopefully we'll all enjoy green lawns and we can play soccer and we can have softball tournaments and do the things we like. And I would have, if I could just have the floor for one more minute. Councilor Bettine read a number of statistics, but there's another way of looking at those budget increases that you mentioned. And there was a small amount, I think you said about 2% annual. We have to look at the one-time revenues versus the ongoing revenues. And we've been blessed by having investments that private sector people come in and build new hotels, or Vantive built a new building and so forth. Those revenues are one time. We're never going to have another building like Vantive. We're never going to get another Homeward Suites. We have 6 hotels that are in various stages of construction. Those are one-time revenues. That's not something you can use to operate a street department. That's money you should be putting into capital improvements. And there are statistical charts on the website, and I think that's what I saw you had on your laptop, that the public can look at. And in those years where the fund balance was built up, we took money away to invest in what? Streets. So, thank you.
I'd like to make one more correction too, because I think when I was explaining my chart, it may have been a little confusing because I said something about Montrose and I said didn't have an airport. And what I meant to say was that though Montrose has an airport, their city is not budgeting or responsible for managing the airport. So that's a differentiator.
Thank you very much.
I would like to add a brief remark to the manager's comments, and that is the Utilities Commission meeting yesterday. Among other things, staff reported on multiple projects, including the water reclamation facility, but that also includes both the rate study and our drought management plan, which are underway. And they won't be complete in time for this city council, but they will, both of those will figure into water planning for the future and our budgeting for our water, our utility infrastructure. As I said yesterday, I'm going to be a very interested observer when those reports come in.
Well, I'd like to remind everyone that the sewer plan is on time and on budget. And we voted for that overwhelmingly to leave it at Santa Rita Park, not to incur $40 million more in debt. I can only imagine what the sewer bills would have been if City Council decided to move it. But fortunately, we decided to keep it where it is, remodel it, and voters agreed. And so that project will be fabulous in Durango. I know Councilor White one time talked about playing golf in Mesa, and there was a sewer plant next door, and he couldn't even tell that there was a sewer plant. So this new plant will remedy many of the problems that we've experienced with the old one. So I appreciate all the voters who voted for that sewer plant and recognize the wisdom of keeping it where it was and not incurring $40 million more in debt. City Manager?
If I can add to that too.
Please do.
The money's one thing. The aspect of that sewer treatment plant that I was most amazed by was, and former Mayor Rinderly was and I were the last holdouts of
Yes.
looking at other options, any options to relocate that sewer plant. And what it came down to me was we've got 2 6-foot diameter pipes that would have been required to pump sewer from point A, because we aren't going to redo the entire infrastructure of our community. All sewer lines go to the current location. So to pump that sewer into any other location would have been the dollars that Mayor Marbury just talked about, but also would have put the city of Durango on an electrical circuit for the rest of Durango's life, which is hopefully a long time. Perpetuity is a long time. So just the vulnerability of putting the entire city of Durango on an electrical pump system, which requires 2 pumps to pump all this sewage to any other location. It's not gravity fed, was the factor that led me to vote for keeping the sewer treatment plant exactly where it is. And so it's come up recently that that was a huge error in the city council's thinking. I'm sorry we fought that battle, and that was a scientifically proven, in my mind, good decision. Not only financially, but just the environmental impacts of moving that sewer plant would have been incredible. So that's the reason you see it where it's at. We're doing the best we can. It was there long before a significant amount of whitewater activity. We hope that both those uses will go into the future in harmony. Yeah, but when we need a new sewer treatment plant to expand our area, the concept is you build a new sewer treatment plant and build in redundancy in the community rather than pick up everything from where all roads lead to Santa Rita right now and move it somewhere else. It just was infeasible and illogical.
A couple of the alternatives included going down the river where you could use at least some gravity feed, except given the meanders of the river and the intervening topography, the most cost-effective approach would have been running those 6-foot diameter sewer pipes across the river, under the river, multiple times. And the environmental risk attached to piping sewage across our major river was one of the other unacceptable aspects of the alternative site.
In that same
Some
time,
of the alternative sites.
In that same time frame that we were worried about our river water quality was about the same time the river turned orange. And so environmental impact and long-term impact to our river of anything like 2 6-foot diameter sewer pipes in anywhere adjacent to the river was, I would consider, an egregious act. So to have this come up later by individuals is hard to believe at this point in time, especially for some of those folks that weren't even here when that decision was made to be making those statements.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You know, we worked really hard on that sewer plant. We had lots of discussions and public hearings and public meetings, and so I think it's going to be a testament for the future. There'll be Santa Rita Park, there'll be recreation, there'll be whitewater rafting, there's picnicking down there, and it's very important, I think, to citizens to understand that that $40 million would just be going down the river, and now we're not using that extra $40 million. We are being transparent, and I think the 3 of us that were on that council went through hours and hours and hours of soul searching and testimony and listening. So I'm very proud that the Santa Rita Park is on time and on budget. And I appreciate your comments, all of you. City Manager, we talked about 1A. Could we look at the exact language? So if I vote for 1A, hello, I'm voting for 1A. I support streets. I don't support robbing the Parks and Rec Department. I don't support robbing the 2015 or the 205 budget. So here's the exact language that you're going to see on March the 16th. Shall the City of Durango taxes be increased not more than $4,686,000 in the first full fiscal year of collections, and by whatever amounts are generated annually from an additional sales and use tax of not more than 0.5%, to be imposed beginning July the 1st, 2019, for the purposes of funding the construction, operation, and maintenance of streets, alleys, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and related street improvements, with proposed expenditures being first submitted to a Citizens Advisory Board, like we have for Parks and Rec, like we have for the airport, like we have for the Utilities Commission, the Public Art Commission, and for a recommendation to City Council, provided that these increased taxes shall not be collected after June 30, 2029. It's a 10 years, it's a sales tax Farmington raised their sales tax 0.6% to pay for streets. Bayfield voted 1% to pay for street maintenance. I talked to the mayor of Bayfield just recently. He said they're paving streets and he's really happy with that additional revenue. So some people would like to rob Parks and Rec. Not me, not me. I support the street department and I support Parks and Rec and the amenities that they bring in and the dedicated sales tax. You saw part of it tonight in the 205 that paid for Oxbow Preserve and Park, and as well as is helping to sustain Lake Nighthorse, the Animas River Trails, many amenities that the gymnastics facility, for example, things that we all love and appreciate about Durango. So I wanted everyone to be sure and see, it's very specific. After 2A, people said, separate the ideas. It's separated. Keep it simple, stupid. Here it is. 10 years, 0.5. This is what you get. Construction, operation, maintenance, alleys, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, street improvements. And we all know that there are streets in Durango that need to be dug up and go for it, and that takes money. And right now, it's just not there. The sales tax in June, July, August, September, and December were below zero. Hopefully, we're going to have a better season coming up with more snow, and as the city manager said, lots of good water and good times in Durango. But we do need to look for our future. City Council is very transparent. What you see is what you get. And gosh, we all know there's potholes on Pluter Road on 32nd Street. With this severe winter, they've been cracked, they've been opened up, and it is a problem for all of us. And so everyone will share in this. Those residents, yep. The people that come into out of town, yep. They'll help pay for the sales tax when they go grocery shopping, or if they buy a pair of tennis shoes or a t-shirt, they also will be helping to pay for it. Just like you do when you go to Farmington to shop. You help pay for their streets. So that's my pitch. There's a citizens committee out there that's for 1A, and I would encourage you to look at their websites. I'm shameless. I support 1A, and I support our streets, and I support our Parks and Rec department. As the mayor, I went to the Colorado State Ski Championships at Fort Lewis. We had athletes coming in from all over the state of Colorado. They were very excited to ski during our big blizzard. They also skied at Chapman Hill. So I presented awards, as well as Superintendent Dan Snowberger. President Tom Stridicus was also there pitching for Fort Lewis. And Barbara McLaughlin, our state representative, flew in to also present awards. I attended as the mayor of the Fort Lewis College Faculty Showcase at the library last week and was able to see many, many wonderful college professors and what they're doing at the Fort. So at our library, for example, we have a patent and trademark resource center. I bet you have a really good idea out there. And so maybe you would like to get that trademark or that patent. You go to the library. We're the only one in the Four Corners that has the staff to help you to prepare. You have a game. You have something that you think is going to rock the world. Go to the library, ask for help. They can help you to become the next great entrepreneur from Durango, Colorado. So we talked about streets, we talked about the library, we talked about our wonderful police department. The police department is also paid through the General Revenue Fund. And the General Revenue Fund is what is in need of assistance. It's your hometown. You make a decision, and I hope we all make great decisions in Durango. Any other comments? With that, we're moving into 11.1. It's a discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to determine matters relating to potential purchase, acquisition, lease transfer, or sale of real property within the city of Durango as permitted in CRS 246402-4A. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Bricky?
Yes.
Councilor White?
Yes.
Councilor Bettine?
Yes.
Mayor Marbury?
Yes. And with that, we're going to say goodnight. We'll see you on March the 19th. Thank you for all.